Welcome back to the Pats Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Hensler, and together, we're going to explore different facets of athletic training, our colleagues, and their stories. So stick around. Let's be better athletic trainers. Welcome back to the Pats Convention. I've got John and Dave here. We're going to just kind of shoot the breeze. They're going to talk about a little bit about the concussion program and go on from there. So I know you've been around the block a couple. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the profession now for 43 years, and as a certified athletic trainer. And I was pretty much a late bloomer, to be quite honest with you. I was working in a secondary school setting for a number of years, probably I'm going to say like 32 years. And then I was approached about possibly there was an individual who wasn't able to complete the responsibility to become the president-elect for Pats. And I was approached by Greg Janik from Kings, who was a past Pats president, about possibly putting my name in for that, and I did, and I was elected as the president-elect for Pats, and that just really triggered years of service and got me involved in so many things that Pats has been involved in, including the Department of Health grant for concussion education, and it's just been serving our profession and serving others is really what it's all about.
Awesome.
I mean, you had a lot of things going on prior to being Pat's president, though. You had secondary school committee things with Pat's. Yeah. Weight assessor.
Yeah, there was some secondary school things specific to secondary school things. Weight assessor for the PIAA. I'm on the, as far as the wrestling certification each year. Larry Cooper, another secondary school athletic trainer, and myself are the two master assessors in Pennsylvania to teach athletic trainers how to assess weight for their wrestlers, and we do that on a yearly basis. We still do that. We've been doing that for quite a while since that program has been in effect. I believe that started in like 1994 or somewhere around here. It's been a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
And it was kind of presented to us as something new. So I don't know if it just blew up then, or if it got more like the weight assessor. I don't want to say certification, but like that actual formal class to really hammer it in.
That was a big step by the PIAA because and I'm a member of the PIAA Sports Medicine Advisory Committee through Pats. I'm a Pats liaison to that. That was a big step because for the first time, hydration was thrown into the formula. And that made things a whole lot tougher on the athlete, so to speak, but a whole lot more beneficial to the athlete, knowing that they were at least hydrated going into the season. So, and then
I found it beneficial because you have that flyweight that's been wrestling down there freshman, sophomore, junior year and struggling to keep that weight. It gave me at least a little bit of the ability to talk them out like, hey, why don't you go up a class and actually, enjoy your senior year and not struggle through the winter. And for me, I liked it.
Yeah, and as with anything else, at first the pushback was we were going to kill the sport.
A lot of pushback.
Of pushback, and then now, the executive director of the PIAA, Bob Lombardi, will tell you that the wrestlers at the state championship matches look very healthy and very aggressive, and the way you want your wrestlers to look.
It would be cool to see some metrics if anybody tracked them on the quality of athlete from 10 years ago, 12 years ago versus now after we've had coaches now that wrestled in high school, went to college, and now are back coaching at that age group, and it's just to see the competition level.
Yeah, they seem to have more energy, be more lively, and that's what you want. I mean, the whole concept of having a kid wrestle all year long at a weight class only to drop down a weight class for sectionals and
never
states
made sense to me.
Never made sense. Yeah. So, but. Yeah, and then as Dave said, I was a member of the NATA Secondary School Athletic Trainers Committee for 4 years, and that was awesome because now you're looking at a national picture and seeing what people are doing from all the districts of the NATA, and that was really cool. And now I'm the president-elect of the Eastern Athletic Trainers Association, so that's a totally different ball game. Where now I'm looking at an educational symposium every year, and so you get all aspects. When you volunteer for things, you get to see all aspects of the profession, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the coolest part, at least, from a perspective here, is it's just the people you meet, right? And then you meet them and the relationships you build because of that. We have no business being friends, right? I mean, we do have some things in common, but we would never have been as close friends as we are had we not been involved in this crazy profession of athletic training that we have. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Like, our years are slightly off to be classified as like, hey, we didn't grow up together, that kind of a thing. But, just because I happen to be on the executive board at Pat's as the treasurer, when you rolled into that president-elect spot.
Thank God.
I don't know about that, but
The reason I say that is because my first executive board meeting, I just by happenstance sat at the board table next to Dave, and Yvette Ingram was the president at the time and running the board meeting, and I was sitting here with the agenda, and I'm looking at this, and I kept on looking at Dave, and I'm going, oh my goodness gracious, this is like, I have no idea what's going on here. He kept going, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And it got to the point where it was a little overwhelming. And then he was the one next to me that kept on saying, "You can do this. You'll be fine." And he was right. And we've been really, really good friends ever since then. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Up and down to Harrisburg quite a bit with the Department of Health and doing their good work that they're teamed up with us to do with the concussion grant.
I was just going to say, that Harrisburg, perfect transition.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the program.
Yeah.
So talk about the grant,
Yeah.
what we're using the money for, what our hopes and goals are for the program in its whole.
So, I mean, there was a couple of things that started this off way back. It was 8 or 9 years ago. I can't exactly remember.
2013, I believe.
Yeah. And what really happened was we kind of had a relationship in the past before our group got involved again with the Department of Health. Pat's has had a pretty strong relationship with them previously with some grants that had occurred before there, mini grants about not specifically concussion, but just about some other things. I can't actually remember some of the specifics before my time. But then, the Department of Health was looking for, concussion was a very hot topic at that time. And they were looking for ways to reach out to the public to do some education like the Department of Health does. So one of the goals was we just need to recognize, how do we teach the public to recognize what a concussion is? And more importantly, when a concussion happens, what should these people be doing, right? Who should they be letting know that, hey, I think I have a concussion? Because part of the battle back then was just trying to overcome that old stigma of, you just, got some cobwebs.
Rung the bell.
Yeah, the bell rung.
Remember
Some
that one.
cobwebs
Yeah.
in,
Oh, he just rung
shake
his
it off.
bell,
Yeah.
and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, the shake it off kind of a thing.
How many
Get back
fingers do
into
I
it.
have up? All that ridiculous stuff. And it was hand in hand with the Safety and Youth Sports Act, which is Pennsylvania's
Right.
concussion law, and that occurred in 2011. And we had some really good relationships with some of the legislators that were sponsoring that law. And then when the opportunity came to apply for this grant, once again, Greg Janik actually wrote the actual PATS application for the grant. Yeah. Pretty much sent it in thinking, hey, we made a nice effort here. And I'll never forget the phone call. He called me up. I was actually out exercising, and he called me up and he goes, John, you're not going to believe this. Not only did we get the grant, we got it for 4 years at $100,000 a year. Nice. And it was like, oh my gosh. And from there, this is real. And it was, the things that we have accomplished over the last 8 or 9 years, it's mind-boggling. It's been a labor of love, so to speak, and we have educated a ton of folks involved in youth sports, from in the high school level all the way down to the youth, which is where we're really trying. We tried to focus the last couple of years because, as we all know, those little leaguers, they don't get the care that the people at secondary schools get with athletic trainers and stuff. But we've done some amazing things that. Not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but just we amazed ourselves. It was like, wow, we really pulled some of this stuff off. It was really cool. Yeah.
So the Department of Health provided funding, and as part of that funding, John had mentioned $100,000. So the program really, was vetted and created by athletic trainers in conjunction with physicians and some other healthcare professionals. And that program, was put together by a company called SSI, and their name's on the Concussion Wise slogan. So it created this program. And then once it was vetted by athletic trainers through PATS and through our work group, which was physicians and concussion experts, the program launched. And basically what it was athletic trainers taking that information to the public. So not only was it, here's great information about concussion and what should you do and how to recognize it, but it was athletic trainers that were the ones that were the conduit to that education to the public. So not only was it just a great program because of the content, but the delivery of the content and it being athletic trainers was really a high point for us as well. And every time we got to go ahead and put that content out there, it was an athletic trainer that was doing it.
Right.
You know? So people were saying, hey, come and run a concussion-wise program over here with our group. And we were sending an AT also, you know, and every time we promoted the program, you know, through radio advertisements, or we'd run out billboards on highways in different regions of the state. We'd start one year, we would be in the southeast, and then we'd be in the northwest, and we kind of scattered the map of Pennsylvania trying to get the word out about here's this program. You know, it was also, you know, the Pennsylvania Athletic Trainers Society,
Yep.
right there, athletic trainers, right? So I think that the ability that the Department of Health gave us was just to really put athletic trainers out there in the forefront of, these are the people that are dealing with these things on a daily basis, and here's the value and worth that athletic trainers have.
Yes.
You know, and to push us out into that kind of stage a little bit is not really where athletic trainers usually go.
Right.
You know, so it is kind of a hesitation sometimes, because the more you're out in the front, the more some of that spotlight shines on you sometimes, which, you know, is kind of a hindrance sometimes for people. But also, you know, the biggest thing that I've seen come from the grant is that we've been able to house athletic trainers in the spotlight, have them be the conduit to the public understand what we do, because we can never do enough of that, because somehow in 2022, there's still people that don't know what athletic
Yes.
trainers are.
Yes.
Our job is never done there. But it's just been unbelievable. And one of the other great pieces of it is the relationship we've built with some of the people at the Department of Health. You know, they've come to us with other ideas now about saying, could you guys do this kind of a program, or what are your ideas on this type of a thing?
So now, is that how the TV programming came about?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The details of all the ins and outs of how that came out, I'm not too sure of, but it definitely was generated from wanting to promote athletic trainers and the Department of Health and their, you know, the cool part about the Department of Health, not to steer away from your question, but like it
Steer
really
away.
is, it
Steer
really
away.
is
Let's
a
go-
group
let's
of
get
people.
this rabbit hole going.
You know, there's this group of people, right, in this government-run conglomerate right down there in Harrisburg that really do care about the public. Like they really do want to get public health information to the public, and they're, you know, just by taking on us, Pats and joining with us as a team, I mean, really shows like they want to get information to the public, and if athletic trainers are the best mechanism to do that for concussion or a myriad of other issues, you know, that we've kind of talked about behind the scenes about what could other grants work for or work like, it's just been outstanding working with that group, you know, and they, you know, because they really just care about, is the public getting the health information that we need them to get.
That's refreshing to hear. It
And
really is.
and when you look at it, PATS and Sports Safety International program that we have was one of 3 that was approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Health as accepted programs for part of the Safety in Youth Sports Act. Was that every coach, volunteer coach, anybody involved with youth sports had to get some sort of concussion training in order to be able to work in the secondary school, middle school area. And to have athletic trainers be one of the approved programs, along with the CDC and the National Federation of High School Sports, it's amazing to have those 3, and those are the only 3 programs accepted by the Pennsylvania Department of Health for us to go out and do this education. And to answer your previous question, part of the grant
Which
funding,
I didn't do, I think.
part of the grant funding was to promote it through outlets, and so we contacted Pennsylvania Cable Network, PCN, and we made a real nice relationship with a gal there, and she talked to us about a Sunday program that we would be able to produce a half-an-hour segment for, and basically what happened was the president at the time of PATS was able to direct that program, and so we ended up making 3 of those programs, half-hour segments, and it was just a great experience, you know, sitting there, getting things filmed, working with producers, and it took us out of, like Dave said, out of our comfort zone. And the other thing I think that is really funny for us is athletic trainers, I'm sure you know, are frugal. You know, you look for ways to save money or try not to spend too much money. And we were in a situation where they were like, you have this money, we want you to go out and spend it to educate the public. So it was like, oh, wow, it's like, got a new car here, let's go drive it. And it was really cool.
So you don't have to use your iPhone to film. You can actually get somebody in.
Yeah, it was really cool.
A production company, yeah.
And you can see the progression. Like the one that I did initially was horribly.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Elementary compared to the next one we did, and that one was the next one after that was even better. So the progression was really cool.
And,
yeah.
I mean, we don't know yet, but there might be more of those to come.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That would be exciting.
Yeah.
That would absolutely be exciting.
It's just portraying and putting out in that public sphere of what athletic trainers really can do. And what is our knowledge base? How much do we actually know? Because I'll tell you, I've done some of the live trainings for the concussion-wise programs over the last year, and it's a pretty awesome feeling when you're there in front of a group of students or faculty or coaches or other professionals, and you get to say for the first 5 minutes, hey, my name's Dave Marchetti, and I'm an athletic trainer, and here's what an athletic trainer is, and then go into the concussion program. Like,
right.
I really am hitting on this probably too much, but like I can't understate how important this grant and relationship with the Department of Health has been with just allowing us as athletic trainers to talk about how important athletic trainers are and what that skill set is and what knowledge base we have. As even just entry-level ATs coming right out of school, what the bar is, what the standard is for them to be able to have an enormous impact on public health. Public health has obviously been a pretty important piece over the last couple of years, and athletic trainers fit into that perfectly.
I thought it was really cool how across the state, across Pennsylvania, athletic trainers kind of stepped it up and filled in where there was need.
Oh, absolutely. I've said this often. Sometimes people look at you like you have two heads, but I honestly feel that COVID was huge for our profession. Because we really got to demonstrate our value and worth on a level, especially in the secondary school level and the middle school area, all levels all the way up. But I think especially in the secondary school level, because I still think, like David said earlier, there's a lot of folks, especially down at that level, that don't really understand the amount of health care you're getting from an athletic trainer. Now, all of a sudden, you have an athletic trainer who has to adhere to new rules and regulations, work with the school's health director, nurses, psychiatrists, the whole 9 yards, and put together a protocol you're going to follow for the safety of your athletes. Your athletic training room now is becoming more of a clinic than ever before, but it also has to be a safe space. And it was amazing to see some of the things that the athletic trainers were doing at that level, and I know on the collegiate level as well, in order to show the public and their students that we are out for your safety, and we're going to take every step possible, mask, social distancing, so many tables per feet and all that kind of stuff, and then still allow the whole athletic program to run and be efficient and for those kids to be successful. It's amazing. It was really cool. And, some people, after you hear it explained that way to them, go, you know what, you're right. A lot of folks, when they first heard it, was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to do all this work now to do all these protocols. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, because we're athletic trainers and we're healthcare providers. Let's go do it. And I think that was a good thing for us. I really do. Yeah.
And now there's talk about removing physically active from the State Practice Act and adding possibly invasive. I heard.
Invasive is in there.
Okay.
Invasive currently in there says may not perform invasive
right.
procedures. So they just want to remove that
Yep.
piece because, it makes total sense that you can't, if you look at the Medical Practice Act in PA from like 1985, I think is the last time they redid the whole thing, they don't define what invasive actually means.
Right.
So there's a definition, there's a word in there that no one can define because it's not defined. So it's like it's ambiguous. No one knows what that means. There's just no need for that.
But then
word to be in there.
there's a procedure that's associated with it that no one knows what it is. So what don't we do?
Right.
So you take the most conservative approach.
Yeah, and there's arguments about what is invasive, what isn't. Is it breaking the skin? Is it if the skin's already broken? Then can we just repair the skin? Is that not invasive? Rectal thermometry has been talked about.
Yep.
I mean, that is the standard. Rectal thermometry for heat illness is the absolute standard of care.
It's necessary.
There's
You
no
can't
way
adequately,
around the idea that you could treat someone with a heat illness without that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the data is overwhelming. So to say that would be something that would be somebody could argue is invasive just is mind blowing to me. But the idea is we shouldn't have to argue that it's invasive because that word doesn't even really belong there anyway.
Right, it's you're saving lives. It's like a Narcan pen or an EpiPen.
Yeah.
Is that invasive because you're actually sticking someone through the skin?
Yeah.
And it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. But those are life-saving measures, which athletic trainers are doing. Hopefully not on a daily basis, but
Sure.
but every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just something that really that really out of all of it really is an important piece to it. If that could just be removed, so there is no question. Listen, athletic trainers practice under the direction of a physician. That doesn't change.
That's the key.
It's always
Yeah.
been that way. It's gonna still be that way. That's the important perspective. What that physician allows each athletic trainer to do that they direct, that could be worked out between the physician and the athletic
Correct,
trainer.
correct, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if someone has had continuing education in certain procedure or whatever it might be, they should be able to perform that because they've learned it. It's a learned skill. It's in their educational requirements, just like any other healthcare profession. I mean, that's where we're at.
Yep. If the physician is happy with your skill set, he can write that in your standing operating standing orders. And why shouldn't you be able to do those procedures if the physician feels you are trained and he's comfortable with your skill set?
Yeah, I mean, and then the population component of that, the physically active. We're the only licensed healthcare providers that have a population.
And that's not
written in
defined
there.
either. Because I remember in undergrad, it's just like, what's physically active? Is a
Yeah.
90-year-old physically active? Well,
Yeah.
if they
Some are.
consider themselves, and
Yeah.
they absolutely can be.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm trying to think specific. I might screw up the language, but it's not in the Medical Practice Act, but it's in the rules and regulations. I think that physically active might actually be defined, but the definition is again
Very vague,
ambiguous.
very gray.
Yeah,
Yep.
so-
Very gray. Yep.
very gray.
Yeah, lawyers love gray.
You hope. Yes.
Right, and that's also it. Like this, the best, the way they titled the act, the modernization, is really the word. Like that's the buzzword. Like it really truly is a modernization. I mean, it hasn't been really worked over since we added licensed, just in 2012, right? That's they just changed certified to licensed, and then other than that, nothing's really been modified for decades.
Yep.
So I mean, it's time. Other healthcare professionals do it, and that's how you have to stay up with
So
the
get a
times.
hold of your congressman.
Absolutely.
I think Nikki sent out an email last week.
Yeah.
With who to contact. So check your spam, check your filters, and give Harrisburg an email.
Yeah, it's in the
Absolutely.
Senate bill right now, and then hopefully it'll get into the committee and out of the committee, and then out of the Senate. Maybe it might have to take up days to do like second and third considerations for that stuff, but then hopefully it'll get in to the House, the General Assembly side, and they'll get it going.
Awesome.
Yeah.
we need it.
Being a licensed healthcare provider is it gives you a lot of responsibility to hold up to those credentials, and that was a huge step for us, and I think therefore let's take it one step further and allow our physicians to embrace our license as by the State Board of Medicine and say, these folks are trained in this, they should be able to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, whether it's State Board of Med or some athletic trainers are still licensed under the osteopathic.
Osteopathic,
I think
which is fine.
that's where my original license
Yeah.
was.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, like John said, I mean, it's really about being able to practice at the top of the credential that you own as a healthcare provider. I would expect going to a physician assistant that they should be able to perform at the top of their credential with utilizing all of the continuing education that they've gained over the years. And we shouldn't be treated any differently than that as athletic trainers.
I like it. So what do you guys do for fun?
Man, all kinds of stuff.
So
Mostly
I'm
fun.
guessing skydiving.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm afraid of heights too. So
Yeah. I mean, so fun for me is just campfires and hikes and outdoors. We're going on a hiking trip, coming up with my family, my wife and sister, and it's always a fun time. So outdoor stuff is great, hikes, camping, for me right now. Tis the season, so.
yeah, I'm an outdoor exerciser. I love to go for 3-mile walk. I like to get lost in the woods or areas where I'm not going to be bothered and just, take it all in. And My wife and I recently, we have a puppy, and a 6-month-old puppy. So puppies in their own right.
Awesome.
I'll
Yep,
put
they'll
a whole
keep you-
new energy
oh, yeah.
level into you.
They'll
So
keep you going.
yeah, and I enjoy cooking, especially grill cooking, but I do indoor cooking too. So there's enough hobbies and other interests to maintain my interest other than athletic training. So
And hanging out with ATs when
Absolutely.
you're not at work.
yeah,
Hey,
It's a fun time.
sometimes. Hey, it's not very
That's-
many people keep that kind of schedule.
and
Yeah.
it's,
It's actually
and
really
it's like Dave
difficult.
said.
Yeah.
Dave said early on in this podcast, it's all about relationships, and I'll tell you what, the relationships that we have made over the years, it's mind-boggling, and some of the most incredible people we've ever met. And, they're our friends. It's like, wow, that's what it's all about. Yeah,
So speaking about over the years, how long have you been an athletic trainer?
43
43.
years. Yeah, retired from a secondary school 2 years ago.
Okay.
But I've maintained.
And then got back into it somehow?
I just continue to serve, but
Okay.
I if I was called on a per diem or to fill in somewhere, I could do that. I have not given up my certification, so
Okay.
and I don't intend to anytime soon. So, but yeah,
Pry
it's
it
been
from
a
your cold day.
yeah.
Dave, how about you?
I've been certified for 20 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that went kind of quick. But yeah, been practicing and a faculty member. The cool part about my role, I'm at King's College up in Wilkes-Barre, PA, Northeast PA. And the role I get there is the best of everything. I get to be a clinician and I get to be in the classroom as a faculty member. And I think that one of the cool things in our profession still is that there's clinician faculty. Not everybody uses that model, but it's a model in healthcare that people really want. Like, people want doctors who practice when they're teaching in medical school, and you want to have a physical therapist that's practicing and teaching, and I think that model is, it's like a rocky model. It's tough to make happen. It's tough to make work. But if it works, it's great. If it works for your institution, great student feedback from being able to be their preceptor, and then you're in the classroom with them. Not to say that if you're in an all academic program or your professors are all academic responsibilities and not clinicians, you would have great experiences that way too. I'm just specifically speaking for my situation. But
It has its ups and downs,
Oh, yeah.
just like everything else.
Sure,
But
yeah.
it does bring more to the table.
Yeah. And the one thing for me, and it might be kind of selfish, is like, I want to practice athletic training. This is why I became an athletic trainer. Having that hands-on experience with live patients on a regular basis has been a huge thing that's really let me grow and bring so much more to my students in the classroom and as a preceptor, that it's just the experiences I've had in that venue of being able to practice and then bring it to the classroom has just been great. And our students have good feedback on those kinds of things. And, it really hits home when you've got to walk the walk a little bit,
Yep.
and you've got to say, practicing evidence-based here, but you know what, right now, I don't know what the evidence is, and it's not very strong, so we've got to use our clinical reasoning and
Yep.
some decision-making and kind of wing it, right? Like, that evidence-based practice model of the three things, the experience of the clinician and the patient, and then the research, those circles aren't always the same size, right? Sometimes one's really small and two are really big, and you got to try and manage that. So,
And that's probably the thing I miss the most being retired, is not being in the room actually performing healthcare and rehabilitation on my student athletes, or our patients, as we should say now. And I miss that, because that's the hands-on. That's like Dave said, you use your evidence-based knowledge. You actually get to make an impact before you see them go out in the field and perform, which is cool too. But I really miss the clinical aspect more so than being out on the field watching a sporting event and taking care of what happens during that action. So, but yeah, we always try to tell our young people, appreciate your skill set and the influence that you can have on your patients. Yeah.
just think about, I can just, just in the last decade or even, 19 years or however long it's been, like, just what I learned in school and how much different it is already on just so many different levels of how far we've come with treating heat illnesses and recognizing heat illnesses, even opposed to like just 19 years ago or whatever it was. And now, concussion, of course, is just huge.
That's changed significantly since I was certified originally.
Yeah, and for, there's so many healthcare professionals that I interact with on a daily basis because I practice clinically that I wouldn't if I was only academic, teaching academically, and that you interact with some of these healthcare professionals, and they're not up to speed on what concussion, on caring for concussion or treatment of recognition of concussion. Very many of them are, but not all of them. You still run into some of the past thinking on concussions.
And it changes quickly. I remember there was one year I had an athlete come back from a concussion clinic with this protocol I had never seen. It was back when vestibular started coming out. And I was like, I had never heard about it. Yeah. And we just had a presentation like a few months before, probably 6 months before on concussion treatment. And then she comes back with the script for vestibular rehab. And I'm like, what the heck is that? Yeah. I ended up having to call around and figure out what it was. And you want something that has been a game changer in certain types of concussions.
Yep. I mean, it's so embedded now. I mean, that's just part of our normal evaluation when we have someone that has concussion symptoms, and we're taking them on the next day to 24, 48 hours, and we're looking at some of those components too, the VMOS and those types of things. So yeah, I mean, the bigger another similar idea to that is how we're using exercise now to treat concussions, when immediately we were just a few years ago we were saying let's just totally shut people down and let it go. Now maybe that was more than a few years ago, but by the time things filter around,
no stimulus, no screens, no cell phones, it's like wow,
that 24, 48 hours of cognitive rest now, and now we're trying to get people moving and trying to get that cerebral blood flow back up to where it was, so that we can really try and facilitate their recovery.
Yeah, let that young brain function.
Yeah, putting them in the dark room kind of an idea is old school.
I was just going to say that's like prehistoric nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So speaking about the change of concussion, where do you see athletic training going in the next 10 years? Or what would you like to see if you don't have a prediction?
I would say for me, and like Dave was saying a little bit earlier, the medical advances that we have made, or that we are now able to do as part of our general practice, like you take even the AED and stuff like that, which was a long, long time ago, but for me it was a new thing at one time. And it's like, wow, we have these, we can save a person's life with this thing, and all of a sudden they were in schools everywhere and all that kind of stuff. And then you had your EpiPens, but there's a lot more medical skills that you need to have in order to be a healthcare provider as an athletic trainer, and I think that is going to continue to evolve, and that is what I really think is cool. And I have said often I can't wait to see what I think this profession is going to look like 5 years from now. Even though I'm not active in the trenches, so to speak, I'm still active as far as my knowledge and what I want to see happen with our profession. It's exciting to see all the medical advances that we're going to be able to take advantage of moving forward, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to sit there maybe in the rocking chair, so to speak, and say, wow, I never would have thought of doing something like that back when I was, and I've only been out 2 years, but I never would have thought of doing that back then.
Back in my day.
Back in my day.
And Pat's rocking
yeah,
chair.
Exactly. And now it's like, look what they get to do, and I've said that to my athletes often, and as a preceptor, you don't have to do this, you get to do this, and that's what's cool.
That whole phrase, you get to do that. That's a really, really cool way of thinking. That's about the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I mean, you get to do this on a daily basis, and I think that's what's going to keep happening with the profession. It's going to keep getting more medically involved, and that's what we need. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think. I mean, also looking in that same vein, I don't know if I want this to happen. This is just what do I think might happen, kind of a thing. I don't know how we're going to get around this issue of specialization. I think for athletic trainers, I mean, there is just so much now, that other healthcare professions are obviously doing it. To be a doctor, you go and you pass the doctor test. Be a PA, you pass the PA test. You got to pass that BOC to be, a practicing AT. However, I really think that that's coming down the line about maybe ATs branching into some specializations. I don't know if it'll be as hard and fast as like what PAs do or something
where
like
it's
that.
like nationally certified test exam, not just like, oh, I took a bunch of classes, this is an interest to me, functional training, like stuff like that.
Yeah, where it's maybe really more of a focus area of specialization versus kind of, right now, the idea of, we're kind of the jack of all trades. I hate that phrase, but I think there's value in that, but I don't know if you can continue to do that in the changing environment that John was just talking about 10 years from now when, like if you're going to treat people with concussion, you may really have to have a mile deep knowledge on being able to sort that out, right? We've always been able to kind of manage all of the things that we deal with as ATs, in ankles to brains to noses to whatever, and I'm just wondering if it's not going to come down to more of some specialization stuff that we're going to have to do.
See, I'm not necessarily against that, because one of the
Yeah,
skills,
I'm
one
not.
of the skills
I don't
of
know
it-
if I'm against it or not. You
Yeah.
know, but go ahead.
But one of the skills of an athletic trainer is being able to recognize that something's wrong, identify the general what's wrong with it, and then coordinate care for that.
Yeah.
Whether it's something we can handle in the athletic training room or something we're referring out. That I think that's one of the
Which we
biggest,
do all the time.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
one of the biggest skill sets of being an athletic trainer that I think gets overlooked sometimes.
Yeah.
Just that whole managing the medical team, so
Yes.
to speak.
Yeah, no, and I think that is, if you said what is one of the biggest strengths of an AT, I would probably say that is we are not, and I have never worked around an AT who is afraid to refer somebody when it was time for them to be referred, and I think that is a huge strength of our profession, and that also goes back to that idea of, we do have a directing physician who we can refer people directly to, or maybe we need a specialist or whatever it is, and I think that as a healthcare provider, we have an unbelievable relationship with physicians in that role, and I think that that's what really is a huge strength of our profession. But yeah, no, I agree. I'm not necessarily saying specialization was a good or bad thing. It's just kind of something that down the line
I don't have an
kind of
opinion
muddy.
on that right
It's
now.
real
yeah.
muddy. I don't know how I feel about it.
It took us so long to become a recognized part of the healthcare team.
Yep.
And now that we're a part of the team, I don't want to just be part of it. I want to be the quarterback, or I want to be the go-to ball carrier, not just to use football all the time, but now that you've made the team, you want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're looking at with all the healthcare professionals around us. We need them. They need us. And I think that's the give back is, hey, we've been around forever. Now you know what we can do. Put us in the game, coach. Let us do our thing. So,
And you
That's
can
awesome.
tell when you work with somebody like John on committees, how he's 43 years in, and you're retired for 2 years, and you're still as excited about the profession as he was. I mean,
Yeah.
probably 43 years ago
Yeah.
when Joe Izzy was your preceptor.
very true.
Awesome. So one of the questions we always like to ask on the podcast, what does athletic training mean to you? What does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
It could be a pretty deep one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, athletic training is healthcare. That's what it means to me. It doesn't sound like it at first when people say athletic trainer. What the heck is that? That whole thing. But I think it's just healthcare. It's providing good healthcare to all of our patients, and all of our patients are all individuals. Not just this physically active idea. So I think it's public health. It's providing the best healthcare that you can. To the highest level that you can, and I think we are on par with some of the things we provide as ATs just as much as any other healthcare profession is. And I think it's time that we, like I said, we talked about her, it's kind of coming back around, that stepping into the spotlight component of it, like it's the time, it's our time. We've put people through this concussion this age of concussion that we kind of grew out of. That was maybe another really turning point for athletic training.
Oh,
probably
absolutely.
In the profession,
Yes.
Concussion. You had brought up COVID, but even before that, and then
Yep.
into COVID, showing more value and worth in a vast majority of situations, and now we're just up and running. So I think athletic training is healthcare and it's progress.
Athletic training to me is all about service. You go in as we are all here to serve others. And our profession has allowed us to do that, especially on no matter what setting we're in. But I think it's about service and continue to provide service, which also means to your profession, give back to your profession. I think it's all about being a role model as well. There's a lot of responsibility with being an athletic trainer, and I think you've got to be able to emulate that, and you've got to show those things to the public that I'm an athletic trainer, this is the way I act, this is what you can expect from me, I'm a healthcare professional. And so I think it's service, being a role model, and then you take those two things together and you live your life that way, and it becomes a lifestyle.
Awesome.
And and so I am an athletic trainer, and I like to say that, and because I'm proud to be an athletic trainer. And when my kids were growing up and they were trying to find out what Dad did, I was happy to tell them, and they actually both did some volunteer intern stuff with me when they were in school, and they saw what we do. And one did become an athletic trainer. The other one decided it wasn't quite for him. But I think it becomes a lifestyle in the way that you live your life. Yeah.
I like that.
well
Athletic
said.
training is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Let's get some shirts made.
There you go. Yeah. That could be the next Pat's shirt that
Yep.
comes out for convention 2023.
There you go. Dave, John, thank you for sitting down and chatting. This has been awesome. I've enjoyed it. And if anybody wants to reach out, has questions about the concussion wise or some of the stuff going on down at Capitol Hill, any way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, so we do have a concussion email, and I'm thinking what it is. It's patsconcussiongrant@gmail.com. That will come right to our secretary of our grant committee, who will organize anything that they need. If it's in-person training, or they just want to know how to get involved, to be a concussion-wise instructor, to come out and go and educate the public, that would be awesome. We always need more of those folks that want to go out and get involved with the public. Or they could just email John or Dave Marchetti at kings.edu, and we'll be happy to get them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we do have an app through that grant. We do have
I
an
just
app.
found out about that app this morning.
Did you download it?
Not yet.
There's the Pat's Concussion Toolbox, and it's for Android and iPhones, and you can download it for free, and contact information's on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Download the app. All right. Well, you guys have enjoy the rest of convention, and I'll see you guys around a little bit
Fun
later on
parts
tonight.
today, man. Get
Yep.
to celebrate at the banquet and,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
and celebrate all the great 18s.
Thank you very
that are
much for the
going on.
opportunity.
I will
Yeah.
be. Yep.
Thank you.
Well, this brings us to the end of another fantastic episode of the Pats Podcast. If you liked what we did here, please remember to like and consider subscribing to the episodes. Leave a comment if you have any questions, or you want to hear any topics, or if you want to become involved in helping with the podcast. Until next time, I'm Philip Hensler, and this was the Pats Podcast.